What would you do if you were alone in a room with an annoying fan blowing wind in your face? Well, you probably don't know the answer to that, and you think that this is totally unrelated to the topic of this video, but actually some power researchers asked exactly this question, and they used this situation to study what power does to people. So in this video, because we're going to try to answer the question, does power corrupt? And we will answer it, we're going to use this study and this situation to start answering that question. My name is Lourenço, I have a master's in applied social cognition, and this is the psychology of everything. In this video, I won't even define what power is, because everyone has their own perceptions and feelings about it, and there's actually a controversy in the field of social psychology about what power really is. So I'm gonna save that for another video that will probably show up right here if you want to see it and to discover what power really is. But beyond that, we will tackle exactly what you want us to tackle. What does power do to people? Does power corrupt? And at the end, I'll answer a bonus question that I can't really talk right now because it would be kind of a spoiler. So let's get into it. Going back to the study that I just mentioned, the annoying fan one, what the researchers did was they placed powerful and powerless people in a room with an annoying fan. What are powerful and powerless people? Well, basically, in power research, researchers tend to prime people to feel powerful or powerless. How do they do this? They just ask them to remember a situation where they felt they had control over someone. This is the powerful priming. Or when someone had control over them, and this is the powerless priming. So, in this study, participants, powerful and powerless, were placed in a room alone with an annoying fan. And what the researchers wanted to see was whether there were any differences in the actions they took regarding the annoying stimulus, in this case, the fan. And what they saw was quite amazing. Indeed, the results were this. High-power participants were more than twice as likely to take action against the fan than to ignore it. This was not true for low-power participants, where less than half acted on the fan. What this means is that powerful people are more likely to act, and in this case they acted out of self-interest. They were more likely to act according to their own will and desires. However, in this case, no one got hurt, and when we talk about corruption, that's usually what we want to know. And interestingly, the same authors in the same article did another study that helps us answer this question even more precisely. They designed a study where participants had to play one of two games. In one of those games, there was a common resource pool where participants could take stuff. They could take the resource for themselves, right? That would be good for them, but bad for the group. However, in the other game that the other half of participants played, they could contribute to a common resource pool, and when they contributed, when they gave, they would have less for themselves. So what happened? Well, before getting to the results, we need to understand that in this case, one type of action would lead to selfish behavior, taking, and the other kind of action would lead to selfless behavior. Okay, we know that powerful people act more in self-interest, but what were the results of this study? They're quite amazing, by the way. There was a significant effect of power, and power did not interact with social dilemma. Thus, type of dilemma did not moderate the effect of power on action. Activating high power increased the tendency to both take from and contribute to a commonly shared resource compared with participants in the control condition. Wow. What this means is astonishing, because in both situations, one that we would consider moral and the other that we would consider immoral or selfish, participants with power always acted more. What does this mean? What does this tell us? This tells us that power, in general, seems to be agnostic to the morality of the situation, and that it seems to just make people act more and take more action. Keep this in your mind. This is really important for the question if power corrupts. But what is the mechanism behind this action? The participants act based on what? Well, researchers tend to believe that power makes us more impulsive and more intuitive. What this means is that the first behavioral option that comes to your mind is the one that you're probably gonna act on when you are powerful. So, in a situation where taking is the first thing that comes to your mind, you will take. When giving is the first thing that comes to your mind because it is a salient part of that task and that study and the game you are playing, then you are probably gonna give. So, what this means is that powerful people tend to act much more and much quicker on their first instincts and desires. Just imagine an anxious, powerless person thinking, oh my god, I should take, but now, no, maybe I should keep the money, While powerful people, what they tend to do is just, okay, I thought of this, I'm gonna do this now, because I just thought of it, I'm disinhibited, I can do it. That's what power does. It makes us act more accordingly to our instincts. At least that seems to be the case. What does this tell us about the corruptibility of power? Well, gladly, we're not the first ones to ask this simple question. Some researchers studied this and they found that individuals with a strong moral identity were less likely to act in self-interest, yet individuals with a weak moral identity were more likely to act in self-interest when subjectively experiencing power. Why does this happen? Well, let's remember what we already said. Powerful people tend to act more in line with the first thing that comes to their mind. They are more disinhibited to act on their desires and goals. So what it seems to be happening is that these people, these moral gods, these guys with strong moral identities, seem to be thinking about selfless actions in the first place. The first thing that comes to their mind is not self-interested stuff, it's selfless stuff. And this is quite amazing and quite astonishing for a social scientist, because we often think of the power of the situations and not about people's identities. But in this case, identities seem to be really important. At least we know that these people do not get corrupted by power and that they act on probably the result of their upbringing, their parents or their communities or whatever it was. The first thing that comes to their mind is something good. But what does this say about the rest of us? Well, does this mean that we get corrupted? Well, in a sense, what power does is make us act more in line with our own goals, with our own desires, with our own objectives. That at first glance does not seem to be corruption, because it is just making us more likely to act accordingly to what we already wanted. And the thing is, it's so normal for everyone to have self-interested biases and tendencies that we all need to control them. We all think of ourselves as deserving something more, and we act in order to preserve our own happiness and health. So having self-interest is not a bad thing. It's not uncommon, and it's actually necessary for our own health and self-preservation. What we do have is effortful control of our biases, of our selfish biases that help us integrate in a social group. What power seems to corrupt is not our wills, our desires, our objectives, our goals. What it seems to corrupt is our own ability to rein in our selfish tendencies. It lets them come out. It disinhibits them in a way that they become more probable. They become more likely to happen. So this is the answer. This is the nuanced answer. For those moral gods, power does not corrupt. They just act more in line with their own desires and goals that seem to be very selfless in nature. However, for the rest of us that are not moral gods, power seems to corrupt not our goals and desires, but our ability to rein in, to control, to effortfully control our own selfish biases. And that's amazing, and that's the answer to the question, does power corrupt? Well, it's complicated, but this is the answer. So, the bonus answer. We know that in society we are exposed to powerful people doing shady stuff and literally committing corruption crimes. So one question that comes to mind regardless of the scientific answer is, how do we control it? How do we make it less likely that powerful people get corrupted and literally commit corruption crimes? Well, some could say that we could try to just put moral gods in powerful positions, and certainly that would help. However, there are probably not that many strong moral people, and that's not a diss on humanity, it's just a reality. We have selfish tendencies, and that's okay. We care about our own interests. So what can we do? I am someone that favors not individual solutions, but systematic ones. And what I would suggest to anyone starting a business or being in a situation where some people have power over other people is that design the situations so that the self-interest of the powerful is tied to the interests of the not so powerful people. Be smart when it comes to power, be smart when it comes to psychology, and design the situations so that everyone can benefit from them, even if there is some self-interest associated with it. Power does not corrupt in the sense that we think it does, it just disinhibits our tendencies to act. So you probably feel very powerful right now because you watched this amazing video and got so much knowledge, so you should be so disinhibited that you can just press the like button. Take care and see you next time.